the image that changed everything. On October 21, 2025, a quiet corner of the internet erupted into chaos. It began with a YouTube notification from a channel that, until that moment, had been known only to a small but loyal community of amateur astronomers. A channel called Dobsonian Power. For years, the channel's creator had live-streamed casual telescope sessions capturing comets, nebulae, and the slow drifting elegance of Jupiter's moons. It was educational, peaceful, and mostly uncontroversial, but that changed the moment a new thumbnail appeared, Live Capture, 3i Vatls Antarstellar Object. At first it seemed like any other astronomy stream. Yet within hours, that upload would become one of the most analyzed, debated, and polarizing pieces of footage in modern astronomical history. Because this time Dobsonian Power's telescope had recorded something extraordinary. Something that didn't look like a comet, an asteroid, or anything humanity had ever seen before. The video's description was simple, raw image capture. No filters, no post-processing. Direct telescope feed. What appeared on screen was a single still frame of haunting beauty. A massive disc-shaped object suspended in the void of space, glowing softly against the darkness. It looked almost artificial, its symmetry far too perfect for a natural celestial body. Viewers stared at the image in disbelief. The edges of the disc were razor-sharp, glowing faintly with bands of light. Blue, red, and green rippling like energy waves. At its center lay a dark circular region, almost like an opening framed by a ring of multicolored haze. And the strangest part, the object wasn't reflecting sunlight the way comets usually do. It seemed to be radiating its own light. The spark of global fascination. Within minutes, screenshots began circulating across Reddit, X, formerly Twitter, and Discord astronomy groups. What started as a quiet stream from a backyard observatory was now trending under hashtags like Phaeatlas Object, Phyalian Disk, and Hybsonian Truth. Some viewers dismissed it immediately as an illusion, a trick of light, a camera glitch, or digital artifacting. But others noticed the incredible sharpness and clarity of the edges. Amateur astronomers, many familiar with how hard it is to capture crisp images of distant objects, knew what they were seeing was different. The disk appeared luminous, its shape consistent across frames. There was no blur, no cometary tail, no scattered ice fragments, or dust plumes that usually accompany an interstellar object moving through the solar system. Instead, it looked deliberate, engineered. The claim made by Dobsonian Power that the image had not been digitally altered only intensified the mystery. If this was indeed a raw telescope feed, it would mean that what the world was seeing was real, not a composite, not a rendering, not a simulation. As the hours passed, the number of viewers multiplied. By midnight, tens of thousands of people had tuned in to the archived video. By dawn, the image was on every major news site on Earth. The object known as 3i Atlas. To understand why this photograph caused such a storm, one must know the story of 3i Atlas. It wasn't the first interstellar object to pass through our solar system. The first was Oumuamua in 2017, a strange elongated body that moved in a way no asteroid should. Then came 2i Borisov, which resembled a more conventional comet. But 3i Atlas was different. When it was first spotted, it displayed erratic movement, unexpected bursts of brightness, and even what scientists called structured light pulses. Bursts of luminosity at regular intervals, almost like coded signals. Unlike any known comet, it sometimes appeared to move in ways that defied gravitational predictions, altering its trajectory slightly between observation periods. At first it was dismissed as observational error. Then it wasn't. NASA, ESA, and the International Asteroid Warning Network quietly began tracking it. In early October 2025, the object was added to the priority monitoring list due to its unpredictable path and its approach toward the inner solar system. By mid-October, even the Planetary Defense Coordination Office, PDCO, had issued a brief statement acknowledging 3i's ATLS or unusual photometric behavior. In the scientific world, that phrase meant one thing: its light reflection didn't match any known model. So, when Dobsonian Power's image dropped just 2 days before NASA's scheduled update on the same object, the timing felt more than coincidental. The image that defied explanation, the photograph that appeared on Dobsonian Power's feed, was nothing like the blurry specks scientists usually worked with. It was detailed, painfully so. Every contour of the disk was visible. Its smoothness and perfect geometry were almost artistic. And yet, this wasn't supposed to be possible. Even large observatories like Hubble or the Very Large Telescope rarely captured such crisp images of fast-moving interstellar objects. So how could a backyard telescope do it? That question lit the fuse of one of the most heated scientific controversies of the decade. Some argued that the YouTuber had captured a rare moment of alignment, the object positioned at just the right distance and angle for high-resolution imaging. Others suspected the possibility of self-illumination, meaning that the object was emitting controlled light. That, however, would imply technology, and technology meant intelligence. The DIS's coloration patterns only deepened the enigma. Spectral analysis performed by independent astronomers suggested that the light coming from Atlas wasn't reflected sunlight, but rather internally generated energy, possibly electromagnetic in nature. If true, this meant that the object could be some kind of powered vessel, from amateur discovery to global phenomenon. As night turned to morning, the story was everywhere. Major news outlets ran cautious headlines. Unidentified object captured near the Sun. Could this be artificial? Independent astronomer claims to photograph interstellar disks. On social media, however, restraint was abandoned. People were calling it the craft, the visitor, and the proof we've been waiting for. Dobsonian Power's channel subscriber count exploded overnight, jumping from a few thousand to over 2 million. The YouTuber, who identified himself only as DP, released a brief statement the next day. The footage you saw was direct feed, no filters. I'll share the telescope specs and raw data file soon. I believe this image speaks for itself. That single sentence ignited a storm. Thousands began demanding NASA and ESA release their own high-resolution images of Atlas. Yet, curiously, both agencies remained silent. No official comment came from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and the only acknowledgement from NASA was a vague line during a press briefing. We are aware of recent public observations of the interstellar object 3I8AS. Verification efforts are ongoing. To many, that sounded like evasion. Online forums flooded with theories that NASA already knew Atlas wasn't natural, that it was being tracked secretly, or that its purpose had been quietly discussed in closed scientific circles for months. The anatomy of the disk, the image's finer details began to reveal even stranger features as analysts enhanced contrast levels and zoomed in. A faint lattice of light seemed to run along the circumference. Tiny symmetrical segments like vents or panels. Inside the central dark region, several points of colored illumination appeared, forming what some described as a hexagonal pattern. One astrophotographer suggested the inner ring might not be solid at all, but composed of energy like a containment field. Another observer claimed to have spotted micro-pulses of light moving across the surface in a repeating rhythm. When slowed down frame by frame, those pulses formed a consistent sequence, red to blue to green, then repeating. Some wondered if it was a signal. At the same time, skeptics pushed back, arguing that what people saw could easily be atmospheric interference or sensor blooming. Yet even the skeptics admitted something didn't add up: the disk's perfect symmetry and the absence of debris trails that every comet or asteroid naturally carries. If this was truly a natural object, then it was unlike anything that had ever entered the solar system before. Independent verification attempts around the world, telescopes were turned toward the coordinates listed by Dobsonian Power. In Japan, Germany, Australia, and Chile, amateur astronomers tried to replicate the observation. Some succeeded in detecting a faint luminous shape matching the description, but none achieved the same clarity. In forums, users began sharing their raw capture data, comparing light curves, motion arcs, and angles of reflection. The consensus was strange but clear. Atlas was real, visible, and acting unlike any known interstellar body. Still, one mystery remained unsolved: how Dobsonian Power's equipment, supposedly an ordinary 16-inch telescope, could produce such a detailed image from Earth's surface. Conspiracy theories multiplied. Some claimed DP had access to military-grade optics. Others said he was part of a covert, astronomical project testing new imaging technology. But the most intriguing theory was that the object itself had made the image possible, that it wanted to be seen. Silence from the top. As excitement surged, official agencies stayed unnervingly quiet. The European Southern Observatory declined to comment. NASA postponed its scheduled press briefing about interstellar tracking due to technical adjustments. That statement did little to ease suspicions. Meanwhile, independent researchers noted that the International Asteroid Warning Network had recently changed the classification of 3 ITLAS from monitoring to priority surveillance. The object's apparent velocity had also slowed, a fact that made little sense under normal gravitational dynamics. If Atlas was decelerating, it meant it was resisting solar gravity, and that could only mean one thing: active propulsion. For scientists, that was unthinkable. For the public, it was confirmation, the turning point. Within 48 hours, the image had become a cultural phenomenon. Memes, analysis videos, and documentaries flooded the internet. Talk shows debated whether the photograph was real or an elaborate hoax. But the raw data, uploaded by Dobsonian Power, told a different story. It passed authenticity checks. Metadata matched telescope hardware specifications. No signs of tampering were found. And then, just as the debate reached its peak, a curious detail surfaced. 2 days before the video's release, the U.S. Space Surveillance Network had quietly updated its database, adding an entry marked "Unclassified Object, Transient Under Review." The timing matched perfectly. Was this the same object? Had governments already detected it before the public image went live? No one could say for sure. But one thing was certain: the photograph had changed everything. For the first time in human history, the possibility that an artificial object from another star system was within our reach didn't belong to science fiction. It was visible, photographed, and undeniable. Across the planet, a new question echoed through science media and public imagination alike: what if we are no longer alone? The snow moon anomaly. By the time the dust began to settle around the viral 3I TLAS photograph, the world was still catching its breath. Scientists debated, skeptics mocked, believers celebrated. But then, without warning, another video surfaced. This time not from an independent astronomer, but from NASA itself. The footage was meant to be routine. A breathtaking view of the snow moon, the first full moon of the year, captured in high definition and shared across NASA's official media platforms. It was beautiful, serene, and timeless, the kind of footage that usually invites awe, not controversy. But within hours of its release, that changed, because somewhere in the stillness of that moonlit scene, something appeared that shouldn't have been there. The moment the world noticed, the video opened like any other NASA clip. The glowing white orb of the full moon suspended against an ink-black sky. The narration was calm, explaining the astronomical alignment that gave the snow moon its name. And then, right around the 20-second mark, viewers noticed it. A small luminous object hovering just above the upper curve of the moon's surface. It wasn't a lens flare. It wasn't a plane or a star or a satellite. It moved, slowly, deliberately, and vertically upward, as though under control. For a few seconds it glowed faintly but distinctly, maintaining a steady brightness and motion that didn't match any known space debris. Then suddenly, in the very next frame, the camera angle changed, subtly but decisively, cropping the upper edge of the moon out of the shot and removing the mysterious light from view. Viewers immediately flooded the comments section. What was that? Why did they move the camera right when the object appeared? Was that intentional? It didn't take long for the video to escape the confines of NASA's YouTube page and explode across the internet. Within hours, clips of the glowing orb above the moon dominated social media. On Reddit, r/space and r/UFOs were inundated with side-by-side screenshots, frame-by-frame breakdowns, and thousands of amateur analyses. What had begun as a routine lunar showcase was now at the center of a global mystery. The frame that shouldn't exist. Astrophotographers are meticulous observers, and they immediately recognized something unusual about the clip. The lighting on the orb didn't behave like sunlight reflecting off a satellite or space junk. The object had a uniform glow, not the flickering light that spinning debris usually produces. It also moved in the wrong direction. Space debris typically travels laterally across a frame due to orbital motion, but this object moved vertically, upward, and disappeared almost seamlessly into the blackness of space. The real controversy, however, came from what happened next. NASA's official upload was quietly replaced within 24 hours. The new version was identical except for one thing. The frame containing the glowing object was gone. To many, that was confirmation of something larger, a cover-up. The public reaction. Across social media, the debate became intense. Some users accused NASA of manipulating footage to hide evidence of unknown aerial activity. Others suggested the orb was connected to 3IATIS, implying that the mysterious interstellar object might have deployed smaller probes or drones into near-Earth space. The timing again was suspicious. The snow moon event occurred just days after the Dobsonian power image went viral, when global attention was fixated on strange phenomena in space. Coincidence, perhaps. But it didn't feel that way. By the second day, major news outlets had picked up the story. CNN, BBC, and readers mentioned the controversy in short bulletins, describing it as our online debate over an unexplained optical feature. But independent investigators weren't satisfied. They began downloading and comparing the original upload to the new one, noting that the frame in question had been cleanly removed, not blurred or corrupted. That kind of precision edit doesn't happen accidentally. So why would NASA alter its own footage? Unless there was something it didn't want the public to see. Expert voices and uncomfortable questions. Scientists and astronomers were soon called upon to give explanations. The first responses were predictable. The orb could have been a reflection from the camera's optics, a cosmic ray hit on the sensor, or even a passing piece of space junk caught in the field of view. But even among professionals there was unease. Privately, a few researchers admitted that the object's behavior didn't fit any of those categories. Its motion was too steady. Its glow was too consistent. One anonymous NASA employee reportedly told a science journalist that wasn't debris. Whatever it was moving with intent. That quote, leaked online, only poured fuel on the fire. For decades, NASA had been accused by conspiracy theorists of censoring unexplained anomalies in space imagery. But this time, the evidence wasn't coming from grainy UFO videos or witness testimonies. It was coming directly from NASA's own feed. To make matters worse, NASA's social media moderators began deleting comments referencing the glowing object. Threads discussing the orb were locked, and posts asking for clarification received canned responses linking to NASA's general page on camera artifacts. This silence, this refusal to directly address what millions had seen, changed the tone of the discussion from curiosity to outrage. The pattern of secrecy. When researchers compiled a timeline of recent astronomical anomalies, the pattern became harder to ignore. October 19th, Dobsonian power captures the 3ISH-AT-LS disk, an apparent artificial-looking object moving through the solar system. October 21st, NASA's Snow Moon broadcast captures a glowing orb above the lunar surface. October 22nd, NASA postpones its Atlas update briefing citing technical realignment. October 23rd, multiple independent astronomers report difficulty locking on to Atlas's position, as though it had shifted trajectory. For the growing online community connecting the dots, the implication was obvious. The glowing orb seen in the Snow Moon footage wasn't random, it was connected. Could the orb have been a probe or scout from the larger object identified as 3ITS? If so, had NASA caught it on camera and then chosen to hide the evidence? The investigators step in. It wasn't long before independent journalists and data analysts began digging. Among them was Dr. Leah Morgan, a former astrophysicist turned science reporter who published a viral investigative piece titled, "The Frame NASA Removed." Her analysis was methodical. She broke down the motion vectors of the orb, calculating that its apparent ascent rate was far slower than any satellite in low Earth orbit. It wasn't falling nor was it orbiting. It was ascending steadily away from the Moon. Using parallax estimation from the footage, Dr. Morgan proposed that the object was roughly 100–200 kilometers above the lunar surface, close enough to be captured by the same lens, but far enough to appear detached from the Moon's direct shadow. Her conclusion sent shockwaves across both the scientific and public spheres. This object demonstrated powered motion, not ballistic drift. It was not behaving as debris, and its disappearance coincided with an intentional camera reframing. That combination cannot be dismissed as coincidence. NASA declined to comment on her report. The silence that spoke volumes. When institutions remain silent, the vacuum is quickly filled by speculation. Soon, YouTube channels, podcasts, and TikTok clips began connecting the 3ITS disk and the Snow Moon orb as part of the same mystery. Some suggested that the glowing orb was a reconnaissance probe, possibly dispatched by the Atlas object after entering the solar system. Others theorized it was monitoring Earth's moon, possibly scanning or collecting data. A few more radical thinkers even suggested it might have been a fragment or module separating from the larger structure, much like how human spacecraft deploy satellites. And while mainstream scientists largely avoided the conversation, one uncomfortable fact persisted: no official explanation ever replaced the missing footage. Even after public pressure mounted, NASA's official position remained vague. They called it a visual artifact, but no data, coordinates, or optical analysis were provided. The agency simply moved on to other scheduled broadcasts. But the public did not move on. The growing divide. For decades, humanity has trusted its institutions, science, government, space agencies, to be the gatekeepers of truth. But after the Atlas photograph and the Snow Moon footage, that trust began to fracture. What had started as curiosity was becoming confrontation. Ordinary people were now demanding answers to questions once left to scientists. If these anomalies are explainable, why hide them? If they are not explainable, what are we truly witnessing? Petitions emerged demanding that NASA release all unedited lunar and deep space footage from October 2025. An online campaign called Show the Frame amassed over 1 million signatures within a week. Meanwhile, whistleblowers claiming to work for subcontracted media teams hinted that adulting out anomalies was not uncommon in public-facing space videos. If true, it meant that what we see in official broadcasts is curated reality, not raw observation. And then came the final blow: a leaked memo from within NASA's media division. The leaked memo, dated October 23rd, the memo was addressed to internal communications staff. It read, "Please review and confirm final cuts of all lunar broadcast materials to ensure removal of frames containing transient luminous objects or unidentified optical events." Though NASA never confirmed the memo's authenticity, it spread like wildfire. For many, it was the smoking gun. Proof that the agency actively filters out unexplained phenomena before publication. This revelation deepened the narrative that something extraordinary was happening just beyond human reach. Something not of Earth, and possibly not even of this solar system. The psychological shift. Across the world, the conversation was no longer about whether extraterrestrial life could exist. It was about whether it was already here. The idea that a luminous disk-shaped craft could be passing through our solar system while smaller probes observed our moon was electrifying, terrifying, and deeply symbolic. Humanity had long imagined the first contact moment as a broadcast, a landing, or a clear message. But what if the first contact had already begun, silently without announcement, through observation? As people studied the snow-moon footage frame by frame, many described an uncanny feeling that the orb wasn't just moving but watching. The connection to Atlas. The most compelling argument connecting the two events came from data correlations. Observatories monitoring 3I Atlas reported that during the exact time of the snow-moon sighting, the interstellar object exhibited an abrupt change in luminosity, a pulse of energy radiating outward before dimming again. If both phenomena were connected, it meant that the object orbiting the moon could have been responding to or communicating with Atlas itself. This possibility, that the glowing orb and the interstellar disk were part of the same system, transformed the debate into something far bigger. Was 3I Atlas merely passing through the solar system, or was it deploying technology, performing surveillance, even conducting experiments on celestial bodies like our moon? Theories ranged from scientific to metaphysical. Some astrophysicists quietly speculated that we might be witnessing the behavior of a self-replicating probe, an autonomous AI machine exploring star systems. Whatever the truth, one thing became clear: Atlas was no longer an isolated mystery. It was part of a pattern. The moment of realization. In the days following the controversy, something profound happened within the public consciousness. People began turning their telescopes toward the heavens in record numbers. Sales of amateur observatory equipment skyrocketed. The sense of cosmic indifference that had long defined humanity's relationship with space was shifting into something else. A sense of connection, curiosity, and unease. Because deep down, whether scientist or skeptic, believer or doubter, everyone shared the same silent question. If we were being observed, what did they want to see? 3I Atlas and the snow-moon phenomenon